Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our first episode of Ubi Sunt this semester. It is a pleasure to introduce you today to Magaly Novoa, who was a former student in the Department of Spanish and Latino Studies. We're going to talk about her, about the trajectory and the academic courses that she took and all that. But just to mention that she was a student in the undergraduate major in Spanish from 2012 to 2014, doing her BA in Spanish with a concentration in translation. And then she continued with the graduate program in Spanish, and she graduated with a master in Spanish and a certificate in translation and interpreting in 2015. So she was some years with us in Montclair State University in our department, and it's such an honor to have you, Magaly, with us tonight. So welcome back home.
Thank you, María José. It's been a pleasure to being part of this project, Ubi Sunt. I'm so glad to being able to share my experience after graduating and my experience during the my time at Montclair. I was so happy to be there, and it helped me a lot to develop as a professional in the translation business.
Thank you. It's so wonderful when we see our students working in the real world of translation and in the translation industry. So I was looking forward to interviewing you someday, even career night, Ubi Sunt in some of our space. And Ubi Sunt is perfect because it's exactly what our alumni, where our former students, what are doing right now. So thank you so much for being here again. I will start this conversation, this interview, by asking you what you did right after you graduated. Like many of our students are saying, like, Professor, what are the steps to take right after graduation? Should I contact translation agencies? Should I send my resume? What did you do right after you finished the MA? I don't know if you were working between the BA and MA, or maybe you can explain a little bit what you do as a undergraduate students before starting the master.
Right. So when I was in the undergraduate program, I was looking for actually an agency or a company that offers translation. I was very interested in, especially if I was able to provide my knowledge as a Spanish speaker first. So I applied at this company, CQ Fluency. They were looking for a project coordinator, someone who can help with the translation projects. And I started as a temp because I didn't have the experience as a project manager. So when I, during the time that I was in my undergraduate, I had the opportunity to get hired and learned a lot of things about the whole translation project. At that moment, I wasn't sure that that was going to be my my career, my choice. But then I started getting involved into the translation world, and I really enjoyed seeing how that how everything got developed from start to end. So, and then I got the opportunity to continue with the master program, and decided to take the translation master's into Spanish.
Before going to the graduate studies, I wanted to ask you, so CQ Fluency was a translation agency, right? Or translation company in Hackensack, New Jersey?
Yes, they are located in Hackensack, New Jersey. So I got the opportunity to work with them in 2014. I started, and little by little, when I get a little more experience, I got promoted to project manager. And with the masters that I was taking, I got the backup to get a better position there.
Okay, so you started working as a language specialist in CQ Fluency, and then you were promoted to project manager. Is that right?
Correct. So it was, I was hired as a project coordinator slash language specialist, but it was basically as a proofreader, kind of. And then I started helping with some projects, very basic projects. And since I was proficient in Spanish, I could help with the translation projects in Spanish as a quality assurance reviewer. And then I got more responsibility with more complex projects and became a project manager later.
Okay, so what are the typical tasks that a project coordinator would do, or language specialist, versus the project manager? Could you give examples or different?
Yeah, so the language specialist, which is really the quality assurance specialist, the quality assurance person that reviews the translations, that they make sure that what it was in English, it's really conveyed in Spanish.
Like the main objective. To make sure that the meaning is, there is no change of meaning, or there is not a change of sense, like the whole meaning is conveyed.
Correct. So I had to, back then, I had to make sure that I compare both documents. I can see English and Spanish matches. And then as a project coordinator, I took care of the very basic projects, like if one client wants to translate one document into Spanish, and then look for the translator, look for the editor, look for the proofreader, and make sure that all the steps are followed until completion.
And then project manager?
The project manager, it's a little more complex. So they manage the translation team that oversee the translation project, like involve converting a single document from one language to another. So, and they can be as complex as having more than one language, 2 languages, and it depends the kind of document. So first you have to analyze the document, see what kind of teams you need to get involved. If you need a typesetting, if you need a designer, and then prepare the document. I have my team for designers, I have my team of translators, my team of editors, and then I have another team for proofreaders. So it's a little bit more complex because the projects themselves are contain more items, like more languages, many types of documents, and it also involves a little bit of client relations. I need project manager manages requests either direct from the clients or other stakeholders. So taking that request from the client, processing, get the correct teams, make sure that the translation has been completed correctly, the files are in good shape, and it can vary from simple Word documents to InDesign files to websites, e-learning projects, could be even videos, dubbing. So it can be a really any kind of project that requires either translators or interpreters or voiceover. So it's a little bit more complex than just the project coordinator who handles just a limited limited side of the project. So
Right.
just one task.
So it's a good thing that you started as a language specialist, right? Or project coordinator, and then you are promoted to a project manager, because I guess now that as a project manager, you are glad that you have been in other shoes of your project coordinators in order to do like quality assurance or proofreading, and more in the translation side. As a project manager, you are project manager, translation side, but also administrative staff and public relations and all those hats that you have to wear now. I was wondering, how do you manage? I mean, which one do you like best, or which one do you prefer? Do you miss your old days as a language specialist only, just worried about your project coordinator, or are you more enjoying more being project manager?
Well, they all have its it's good and bad, right? They have good and bad sides. As a language specialist, you are able to see the creative part, kind of. You see how the translation was really developed. You can help add in some of your feedback. You can say, wait a minute, this translation is not exactly how it's supposed to be. Because you know the language, you can provide some feedback to it. You can talk to the linguist. You go back and forth until you get into an agreement. So as a project manager, it's a little bit different, because not always you manage the language that you speak. So I could handle projects into 30 languages. However, it is interesting to see how each of these languages are so different or so similar. How I have no idea that, for example, languages like Russian and Ukrainian were so similar. I learned to differentiate them. I learned how Greek and Arabic can be so particular. So it is, it kind of expands your vision of how languages work and makes you learn them. I try to learn a little bit of each of these languages. I cannot provide a feedback, but as soon as I see some translation into Spanish, I have to take a look and see, oh, is this correctly translated? And I can, from there, I can go back to the other languages and see if they were managed correctly. So they both have good goods and bads. I certainly miss the creative part of being a translator, a linguist, and being able to create from one language into another, because a translator is not someone who just takes one word and changes into the other because there's a dictionary that tells you that this word means this other one, but you are able to recreate the language, transform it, and make it something that really means something to the target audience, to people who read this and who benefits from it.
Right. Yeah, it's a little bit. Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned the creativity aspect, the creative aspect of translation, because some people think that there is no creativity in that. And of course there is. And it's in the whole dichotomy about process versus the product. So being a project coordinator or a language specialist, you are more into the process, as you said, as you explained, the options and the possibilities and the choices and the decision-making process that translation is eventually. And then as a project manager, you're more concerned about the product, translation as a product for my client, not so much as in the process. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
And
yeah, so linguists, translator, editors, proofreaders, you get to add something from your own to the document or the file that you're working on. Probably as a project manager, you don't have that say on the translations, but you are able to make this product your own, in the sense of you manage the teams who work on them and you are the final eye. Right.
It's another type of, another level of decision-making process. Exactly. Not so much in the linguistic aspect of the text or the project, but in the more like higher socio-political spheres, let's say. And also,
it's like planning. It's like a wedding planning kind of thing. That's a project manager. You have this request from a client, and you have to start thinking, how am I gonna tackle this task? How am I gonna, who's gonna be in charge of it? What teams I need to contact? Do I need engineering to work on this file? Do I need designers? Do I need just a proofreader? Do I need to prove the proofreader once the product is in the target language? So yeah, it's depending on the scope, you have to plan from start to finish, and being able to kind of guess if something is going to be like, maybe this is not going to work. So what's my backup plan? How many days I need to translate? How many days I need to edit? How many days I need to proofread? So, and there's a lot of back and forth. And so it's definitely a lot of planning, choosing the right people, and having backup plans, risk management. You need to think about those, what can go wrong. And if I have there's a problem with, nowadays, everything is online. So if there's some problem with technology, how am I gonna get that file from the linguist if something fails? So, and luckily we have tools now that make things easier and faster than before. But even having those tools, something can go wrong.
Right, and we're going to talk about those tools in a minute too, about the software and all the technology. So after CQ Fluency in 2018, you moved to another translation company that I think used to be SDL Trados, and then they changed the name or something like that.
Yeah.
I remember like many different names in the same company.
Yes. So CQ Fluency was in, it is located in Hackensack, New Jersey, which was very convenient for me, especially because I live in New Jersey. But I believe I was ready to go to the city, to a bigger company. So after gain experience in this small company, and I have to say, being in a small company really helped me, gave me the exposure to all kind of projects, all kind of tasks, all kind of situations. So I was able to work a project from dealing with the client, dealing with the vendors, dealing with invoicing. So I got experience start to finish. And so I was ready to move into a bigger company. And I was actually contacted by a recruiter from Ardonnelly Language Services. So I was hired by them in 2018. Funny thing is, the next year, our Donnelly Language Services was acquired by SDL, which is the creators of Trados, SDL Trados. So they are a big technology company, but also offers translation services. And the next year, it was funny, the next year they were acquired by RWS. So now I've been through 3 companies in one. So, and we're still working on the merging and all those processes, but now the company is RWS and their headquarters is in UK. And I believe it's, if not the second biggest company right now in the world, it might be the third one, with all this companies that were acquired before that.
And how different is your work here in this company in comparison with CQ Fluency? You still are working as a project manager,
yes.
I understand? And
yeah.
So you're doing something different or different sector, like medical, or more projects related to insurance? I don't know.
When I was in CQ Fluency, there was their main focus was the health insurance companies, translation for health insurance companies. So they had a lot of translations into Spanish. That was one of the main ones. Now moving into this bigger company, they have so many different sectors. I started in the corporate one, and one of my biggest clients was Avon. And actually I was hired to get that account because I was a Spanish speaker project manager, because I was able to talk to the editors, to talk to the client, have weekly meetings in Spanish discussing why one term was better than the other one. So my experience as a Spanish speaker was very valuable to them. Now, when we were acquired and I moved to a different department, moved into life science department. So I had experience with many pharmaceutical accounts and medical devices accounts. So I kind of stayed there for a couple of years. So I've been experienced, I have experience mostly in the healthcare, life science, corporate businesses, and but the main my responsibilities are basically the same, maybe with a little more complex projects. I would say more languages involved, different times from simple PowerPoint translations or e-learning websites. So a little bit of everything in that sense.
Okay. Let's move now to technology. I know that a big part of your job is technology, and of course, translation assisted or CAT tools, computer assisted translation tools, and which, by the way, it's a course that we're going to offer this summer. So we are very excited about that. It's a course in CAT tools in Spanish, and it would be great if you could, we could get your experience in some way for that course that we are gonna launch for the first time. And I would like to know, what are the CAT tools that you use? Why are they so relevant? What is the role of them in your work as a project manager? If you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So when I was at CQ Fluency, the main two CAT tools that we use were MemoQ and Trados. So we were able to, I started learning with them how to manage the CAT tools, how they were so helpful when prepping translation projects. We get the files from the client. We run the project through the CAT tool, and then with the memory that is built in those CAT tools, we can create these packages for the linguists so they can easily provide the translations and send them back to us. We can rebuild the original file thanks to these tools, and provide a client with exactly the same format, the same source file in the translated language. So they are essential in the translation business. Now with the company that I'm currently working for, of course, they acquired SDL, which the creators of Trados. So our main tool is Trados, and but they use these tools and they build them into different project management tools, so they are linked to each other. And if you're able to manage Trados and know how to work at it from end to from start to end, then you know how to manage some other project management tools. But I believe, I don't think any translation company nowadays can function without a CAT tool. So either they have their own CAT tools, which is at the case of SEL RWS, which the company that I work for, or they have any other companies that offer CAT tools. I just mentioned MemoQ and Trados, but there are a few other CAT tools available for companies all over, and it is essential for a project manager, a translator, editor, proofreader in any language that have this knowledge, that know how to create a file, work with XLIF files, look at side by side. They help you create a bilingual documents that you can edit, and it can be shared with the next person they're going to take the task. So it's without this CAT tools, we cannot function as agencies or as a linguist. Right. They help us build translation memories. They also help us with a machine translation. So the knowledge, it's essential for these tools.
Yeah, this is why we have, we decided, well, it was the Department of World Languages and Cultures that decided to start this course like 2 or 3 years ago. And I think it's so important to offer that to our students. And I don't think this course existed when you were my student, for example. That would be great, but it didn't prevent you from learning in your own company, because I think that the important thing is to know how to translate, and all the technology and the technological knowledge can be learned inside the company or taking a course, or even my students take tutorials from the internet and they know how to use a CAT tool. But it's important to have it as a course in an academic program in the training of a future translator. So
it is because it gives you an advantage. So if you can have it in your resume, like you are, you know how to work with any of these tools, it will give definitely an advantage when in the hiring process.
For sure, for sure. And talking about the training of students and how can you connect your BA in Spanish, concentration in translation, your master's in Spanish, and the graduate certificate with what you do currently in your translation company, I would like you to explain to me what courses did you realize that were very useful, or what courses you notice they have an impact on what you do every day, or things that you sometimes maybe 5-7 years ago you didn't realize they were going to be important and then turn out to be like crucial now in your work. If you could let us know a little bit about that.
Definitely the courses of translation, the legal, the medical. Well, the medical helped me a lot with the fields that I'm working on right now, especially with the pharmaceuticals. And when I started with health insurance, I didn't know how important was to learn about all these terms in Latin, all these roots, how this so complicated words in English were also so similar in Spanish, and how some people think that we are too fancy when we say it in Spanish. But definitely learning those, and I have to say, interpretation, I admire interpreters, because when I took those interpretation classes, I understood how difficult they are, and I respect so much interpreters and their ability to do that. And I had a chance to, as a project manager, to monitor some live interpreters, and definitely those classes had a big impact. Translation into legal translation, medical translation, interpretation, subtitling. Those classes were very, very important for me to understand what goes through the process and how difficult these tasks are. So now, as a project manager, I understand how the thought process is for my linguists. I can understand when they have some issues. So being in both sides helped me a lot with my planning as a project manager. It is definitely very helpful, those classes.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned interpreting, because there are two different skills. I always tell my students that you can be wonderful translators and not so wonderful interpreters, and vice versa. And also there are people who does both translation and interpreting with problems, but they are for sure different skills. And it's important that students know the different requirements and the different qualities that one should have in order to be a professional translator or interpreter. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. And now we're going to switch to Spanish, because I like always to give some questions in Spanish para cambiar un poco al español, because this is, after all, Department of Spanish and Latino Studies, and we like to have some Spanish language in our cultural activities. Me gustaría preguntarte qué consejos, qué recomendaciones darías a estudiantes que estén ahora mismo haciendo el BA in Spanish with Concentration in Translation y a estudiantes que se están graduando ahora? ¿Qué consejo le daría mientras están estudiando el major en español y a los que ya se van a graduar? Si tienes alguna recomendación.
Sí, claro. Dependiendo a lo que se quieran dedicar. Si quieren dedicarse como a traductores, a intérpretes, no se desanimen. No se desanimen que al principio va a ser un poco difícil que llegar a cierto puesto, pero siempre alguien les va a dar la oportunidad y agarrarse de esa oportunidad y aprovecharla al máximo. Eh, el hecho de tener ya un master's o un bachelor's es bastante y deben de apreciar ese diploma, esa oportunidad. No desanimarse, porque el hecho de ya tener esos diplomas, tener 2 idiomas es bastante y están en están en ventaja. Dedicarse, sí, si quieren a traducir, ser los mejores traduciendo, a ser intérpretes, los mejores interpretando. Si quieren manejar proyectos y ver cómo el mundo de la traducción es algo más que una situación administrativa, sino que es tener la oportunidad de ver la creatividad de un traductor, de un editor, lo pueden hacer también. No desanimarse, simplemente no desanimarse, seguir con lo que tienen en mente y tomar la oportunidad que venga y aprovecharla.
Y un par de cositas más concretas. ¿Qué recomendarías para que los estudiantes mejoraran su español de cara a ser buenos traductores?
Lo que yo hice para mejorar mi inglés.
O mejorar tu inglés, sí. Perfeccionar el idioma.
Sí, claro. Yo creo que el exponerse a los diferentes tipos de cultura, primero, si quieren mejorar el español, leer mucho en español y la televisión en español, si es posible, las novelas, las películas, eso ayuda muchísimo. Yo me ayudé mucho a aprender inglés usando el closed captions.
Siempre lo recomiendo yo también a mis estudiantes. Ver Netflix con closed captions.
Closed captions. Para mí fue muy, muy útil. En el caso de inglés, en el caso de español también lo pueden hacer en la televisión en español. La televisión, las películas, pero no, además también leer en español. Lo mismo que trato de hacer yo para todos los días mejorar un poquito más el inglés, leer mucho en inglés, seguir viendo muchas películas en inglés. Yo sé que es difícil los diferentes acentos en español y lo mismo pasa, los diferentes acentos en inglés. Al principio yo no entendía nada cuando me hablaba alguien de Inglaterra o alguien de Australia, pero poco a poco. Lo mismo pasa con los acentos que tenemos en Latinoamérica, en el Caribe, en España. No hay nada como exponerse a estas culturas y si se tiene la oportunidad, conversar.
También.
Conversar mucho.
Diríamos como las 4 skills, ¿no? Listening, speaking, reading and writing.
Sí.
Practicar de todo un poco. Y mi última pregunta, a un estudiante que se va a graduar o que se haya graduado ya, ¿cómo puede buscar trabajo en una agencia de traducción? En una empresa de traducción en Nueva Jersey, en Nueva York. ¿Se va a internet y busca o se va a algunas páginas como Glassdoor o todas estas páginas para buscar empleo? ¿Qué recomiendas tú?
Bueno, tengo que decir que este es el momento. En este momento están las agencias buscando project managers, project coordinators. Este es el año.
Qué suerte tienen los estudiantes, ¿no? De traducción ahora, entonces.
Yo te digo porque estamos buscando siempre project managers o project coordinators. ¿Cómo buscarlo? LinkedIn es una de los lugares por donde empezaría. Monster.com es otro. Pero, y en las páginas de la universidad, si es que hay contactos, me imagino que sí. Pero sí, online, ya que ahora todo el mundo se mueve vía internet, y prepararse mucho para las entrevistas. Siempre la primera entrevista con el recruiter va a ser para una entrevista muy general, eh, y ser sinceros. No hay nada como estar sinceros y decir, yo quiero empezar y voy a hacer lo que sea necesario
Y a
y
lo mejor
quiero aprender.
claro, exactamente, tener buena disposición, ¿no? De querer aprender y de tener esa actitud entusiasta, ¿no? No se puede saber todo.
Exacto,
Tú, supongo que cuando tú empezaste tampoco sabías cómo manejar todas las herramientas de traducción, los cat tools, no sabías nada, y ahí, precisamente por tu actitud de querer aprender, de querer superarte, empieza a mejorar y empieza a aprender y llegas a ser project manager.
exacto.
Entonces yo creo que está mucho más veces en la actitud con C que en la aptitud, que también es
Lo único que
importante.
sabía era español y inglés.
Bueno, pero es que yo siempre lo he dicho, las mejores herramientas de un traductor son los idiomas, de two
Exacto.
languages. Porque todo lo demás, o sea, tú puedes aprender un software, tú puedes aprender a manejar
Sí.
una herramienta, pero informática, pero si tú no tienes una base fuerte de español o de inglés, que por supuesto siempre se puede pulir y mejorar, es difícil que sea un buen traductor. O sea, lo
Además
importante
que la
es el tiempo.
tecnología va cambiando todos los días, o sea, uno no termina de aprender. Todos los años lanzan una nueva versión de Trados, lanzan una nueva versión de MemoQ, o quizás sale una nueva versión de un Project Management Tool. Entonces, no, nunca se deja de aprender esas tecnologías, pero si uno tiene la base de cómo se traduce, uno tiene la base de los idiomas, no tiene por qué eh, dudarlo.
Muy bien, muy bien. Pues yo creo que los estudiantes se han animado mucho, se están animando mucho al escucharte y sobre todo cuando has dicho que hay muchas oportunidades, que este es el momento.
Exacto. Sí,
Sí,
las
porque
agencias están buscando.
claro, es que todo ya se hace de manera virtual, ¿no? Entonces, lo teníamos, o sea, estábamos hablando el otro día con uno de nuestros invitados en los Virtual Lecture Series, el doctor Romero Fresco, que decía que el live we speaking, ¿no? Ahora tantos eventos online, tantas conferencias, tantos seminarios, tanto que hay en Internet que se tiene que estar traduciendo constantemente, porque ya muchos de los trabajos ya son online. Eso quiere decir conferencias, reuniones, juntas de comités directivos que se hacen en inglés, se hacen en español, se hacen en cualquier otro idioma y tiene que haber un intérprete ahí en vivo, por ejemplo, ¿no?
Ujú.
Interpretando, traduciendo. Entonces, la pandemia yo creo que ha acelerado mucho más la necesidad de traductores y de intérpretes en el programa internacional. Entonces, yo creo que es un momento espectacular para entrenarse, para formarse en estas dos disciplinas, en la traducción y en la interpretación, y ser valiente, como dice Magaly, ser valiente. Vuestras mejores armas son el español y el inglés, y ahora es el momento, sobre todo en Estados Unidos, de esos dos idiomas y de agarrar las oportunidades laborales que se están presentando.
La gente piensa que porque ahora existen herramientas como Google Translate o muchas otras, el trabajo del traductor va a desaparecer. Y yo no creo que sea así para nada. Se necesita, y incluso si se usan herramientas como Google Translate o cualquier otra herramienta de traducción automatizada, siempre se requiere un editor. Siempre se va a requerir la intervención humana para
Exacto.
poder mejorar esa traducción.
Sí.
Porque no ha llegado el nivel de especialización para, por ejemplo, traducir frases idiomáticas. Es muy, muy difícil. Así que incluso si se usa Machine Translation, siempre vamos a necesitar un post-editing.
Siempre. Hoy justamente en mi clase estábamos explicando, en mi clase de Theory and Practice of Translation, a los estudiantes subgraduados, estábamos hablando del tema de las referencias culturales. Y las referencias culturales, que no nos da tiempo aquí a abarcar el tema, pero por supuesto está ahí en cada uno de los idiomas, ¿no? Toda la cultura, y en el caso del español, pues 23 culturas. El tema de las referencias culturales sería imposible que Google Translate te haga una traducción como la que hemos visto hoy, un texto sobre costumbres uruguayas, donde se hablaba ya no solamente del mate y del dulce de leche, que bueno, que esos son préstamos que ya están adoptados en el inglés, ¿no? Pero truco, que es un juego de cartas, o otros conceptos como la grapa o una bebida, un digestivo que se toma después de comer, muchas otras cosas que ahí estudiantes estaban pensando, ¿y qué hago? ¿Una técnica de amplificación o una técnica de neutralización o una adaptación cultural? ¿Y por qué? Lo voy a justificar. Tú pones ese texto en Google y sería como de risa lo que te sale, ¿no? Porque ahí sí que estaría claro que una persona, la mente humana, tiene que revisar eso, ¿no? Entonces sí, Machine Translation, traducción automática, está fenomenal, siempre y cuando como una ayuda más, como los
Exacto.
cálculos. Son
Sí, sí.
herramientas, como los diccionarios, las herramientas de traducción automática, pero siempre la persona tiene que estar revisando, el traductor tiene que revisar todo eso. Entonces sí, estoy de acuerdo contigo, que haya más motores de traducción automática más sofisticados y cada vez saldrán mejores, está fenomenal, pero como una ayuda y como una que nos va a facilitar el trabajo a los traductores y que nos va a permitir hacerlo más rápido, por supuesto, pero que no nos va a sustituir.
Y no va a sustituir al traductor de marketing o al traductor de advertising. Eso va a ser muy difícil que se llegue a ese punto. Bueno, quizá en algún momento, pero no en un futuro cercano.
Es verdad, es verdad. Bueno,
Sí.
pues Magaly, muchísimas gracias por tu tiempo de nuevo. Ha sido un placer conversar contigo y recordar experiencias de cuando era estudiante, ponernos al día de lo que estás haciendo. Te doy la enhorabuena por tu trayectoria profesional tan exitosa y todavía lo que todavía te queda por subir y nada, muchísimas gracias y un placer estar contigo un ratito.
Gracias, gracias. Ha sido un placer también acompañarlos y que me inviten y saber de ustedes y, y poder decirle a los alumnos de que el español, los idiomas es una carrera maravillosa que pueden desarrollarla de muchas formas. Y una de las formas es a través de la traducción, la localización, pueden ser traductores, editores, revisores, project managers, intérpretes. Hay mucho, mucho por desarrollar con los idiomas.
Muy bien, pues nada, esperemos que te veamos de nuevo por Montclair State University de manera virtual o de manera presencial y que volvamos a poder colaborar juntos.
Gracias, seguro que sí.
Magali, cuídate mucho. Chao.
Buenas noches, chao.
Buenas noches.